Welcome. You're watching Business Venture Exchange Africa, powered by the Insurance Association of Zambia. We're here at the Insurance Conference 2017 at Avani in Livingston, and we are very privileged to be introducing our guest of honor and our keynote speaker for this year's Insurance Conference, and that is the Honorable Minister of Finance, Honorable Felix Mutati. Good day, and thank you for joining us, Felix.
Thank you, Faith.
Now, let's begin by talking about the monumentous changes that have taken place in the insurance industry, which your ministry has been very key on. The theme for this year's conference is bouncing back from hard times. How would you describe the current economic time at the moment with specific regards to the insurance industry?
I think the starting point for me is, first of all, the contribution of insurance, to GDP. That contribution has remained principally below 1.5% of GDP. The penetration of insurance has been low, below the African average of 3.5. We are below 3%. It tells me that we've got an engine, but that engine is not firing on all the cylinders. And some of the reason that the sector is not performing is, one, there is a vicious war to undercut instead of underwriting. A number of players in the sector are basically gambling and hoping that they can underwrite a risk, and it doesn't happen. And also, there's a key issue of exporting the premiums. You collect like a post office and then you export the premiums. That is a major issue. But equally important are issues around enforcement of even the existing laws, issues around regulations of even the existing laws. But also added to that is the low capital levels that are in the sector. So these are the things that we have to begin to deal with and solve. And that is why we came here to engage, to have dialogue with the sector, and basically saying to ourselves, how can we pool our collective wisdom to try and answer and ensure that insurance is no longer contributing 1.5% of GDP? How can we double that? How can we increase the penetration of insurance, so that even the common man has a taste of insurance? So for me, for this conference, it is apparently clear that we left the conference with a specific assignment to form a task force team that should report back to the minister at the end of July on 5 key issues that are going to move the sector forward. Issue number 1 surrounds enforcement of existing provisions in the law. Number 1, we already have in the existing law, marine insurance, for example, is not being enforced. Number 2, there are issues around minimum capital requirement. We need to address those. But what we're also saying is that this must be a migration that responds to the capabilities of the sector. You can't from the one say, stop and do start. It won't happen. So the team must sit down and then create a roadmap on how we can actually get an answer to those problems. The second issue that they need to look at is that there is an existing SI in terms of the minimum capital requirement. What we have said very clearly from government is that we are not in the business of closing down anybody. We want to encourage people to move ahead. But some of these companies are too small to move ahead on their own. And if we continue to allow companies that don't have capacity, we're going to allow gambling rather than calculated risk in the sector. So he's saying between now and the expiry, consolidate. You can't be a managing director and chairman of nothing. You need to be somebody who has substance. So the minimum capital requirement is critically important. The third issue that they should look at is how do we begin to minimize the export of premiums over time relative to the capacity that is in the sector. We may not be able to take on board all the mega risks, but we can develop a path of how we can chew into taking those mega risks. So they need to come up with a roadmap. And the next point was issues around taxation, tax policy. Two sides. There are issues that we call housekeeping, which means it's a bureaucracy around the treatment of transactions within the sector and with ZRA. Let's smoothen them out so that we can allow the industry to be able to perform. At the next level is a whole reform in the tax area that will propel and encourage the sector to be able to move ahead. What we're saying from the Minister of Finance, that we're not the only one that are possessed with the intellect and the wisdom to know what the sector must do. Give us your proposition by the end of July. Then together we'll be able to study those. But what we are sure about is that we need to go into a transformation of this sector. It's a big sector that has been idling for too long, and the potential for it is enormous. And the very last point is financial inclusion. How can we use insurance as an instrument for financial inclusion? We gave an example. The weather index insurance, which is around the e-voucher. How can the insurance companies participate in this space? We also gave an example for the commodity exchange, collateral. How can we use the industry to be able to participate by providing collateral for the maize that is going to be procured? How can, for example, the insurance industry be able to respond to the mobile property as collateral? So there are a lot of things that already are on the plate that the industry must be able to respond to and be able to make money. Because our philosophy is very, very simple. Get bigger, make money, so that together we're able to move the nation forward. And my very last point is the insurance bill. As government, we are very keen, we are possessed to ensure that this bill is actually passed this year. It will be the best platform that insurance in Zambia can stand on and to grow on. So I just want to encourage my colleagues in the sector that government is open. Let's dialogue. Let's speak to each other. Let's learn from each other, including learning from the mistakes that were made in the past.
My last question to you on this interview, Honourable Minister, is to talk about two extreme ends that are happening currently in the insurance industry. We're having an influx of foreign players that are coming into the industry and investing into the insurance space, while on the other hand, we've had the monumental Zisk holdings closing down. Now, what does that say? What does that indicate?
It's very simple. The business model for Zisk, in my view, wasn't strong enough and wasn't sustainable. And that is the reason you saw that a couple of months ago, government took a decision to basically write off the holding company, because the holding company was leaning on the resource of the subsidiaries. 15% was going into administration, feeding into the holding companies, without creating and adding value. So once you begin to have those types of business model, you can't grow. And that model was not sustainable. Beyond that, we are undertaking detailed analysis to try and reshape Zisk, including the possibility of introducing a private equity investor. It is, worrying that the other players in the sector are making money, and the big boy is losing money. So it means that there are issues that government must attend to, because Treasury shouldn't support commercial transaction. The role of Treasury, the role of government, is to invest in drugs, in schools, in hospitals, in infrastructure, and not support parastatals that are not making a return to government, but worse still, are also not able to pay even their payroll taxes, even their VAT. That formulation is not sustainable. And for this, it's not sustainable, period. We need not only to panabit it, we need to transform it going forward. This is a space for the private sector.
Thank you very much. And your concluding remarks now as we come to an end. Key issues you've mentioned in there, what came out very pertinent from the conference was that they would like to see the insurance bill being passed, and we are very grateful that you have confirmed that at least by the end of this year we should see that being passed. And of course, the propositions that you would like to receive from the task team, the top 5 issues that they would like to see changed. Your closing remarks as we come to the end of the interview, as they zero in on looking at ways of bouncing back from the hard times.
My closing word is that we have given them an assignment to report back end of July. There is no other proposition to bounce back other than doing that critical work, because that is what is going to take the sector forward. So on this score, we do not expect them to invest time in too much talking and experimentation and pulling each other. They should sit down in a concrete manner and be able to put on the table a proposition that we can use for the purpose of engagement. I've also indicated that some of these companies whose capital is below par, I need to engage with them as government and say, you need to survive, but you need to be realistic. If you don't have capability, it's better that you are realistic, combine and consolidate with somebody else. Because it's not about owning 100% of zero. Own whatever you can own of a number. It's not about the elegance that I own a company. It's whether you're able to deliver food on the table. That's what should matter. So that pride that some of these colleagues of ours have, that I own something, should go away. Only 2 days ago, a colleague came into the office and says he owns an insurance company. I said, good luck to you. You look like you own something. But then I was taken aback when he said, sir, I came by a taxi. Do you have money to pay the taxi? That is not insurance. Then it's fundamentally defective, isn't it? Right. That model can't work. It's not sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and it was such a pleasure having you on the program. You've been watching Business Venture Exchange, and we're privileged to have on the program the Honorable Minister of Finance, and we're here at the Insurers Conference 2017, hosted by the Insurers Association of Zambia. I'm Faith Chitulangoma. Thank you for watching.